All right. Welcome to Hickory Street Podcast. This is an impromptu podcast with Aaron Garcia.
What's up, dude?
So, Aaron is my old friend from high school, and whenever I started Posival, he was like the first person that I had ever played music with. And back in those days, like, we didn't even really have many songs, and it wasn't Posival in the way that it exists now. It was called Negative Help. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Damn.
Such a fun time to remember. I think about that fucking talent show that we played.
Yeah,
that was the first time I ever played in front of anybody ever.
That's been my first and last as of 2024. My first and last show I've ever performed.
Oh, really? You've never played any of your music live?
Hell no. How could you after that? Like, I couldn't. The E! True Hollywood Story, the downfall of Negative Help. But,
oh my gosh.
Because I think when we look back, I think that whole thing was only like maybe a month of us like jamming. I think it started and then like it ended with the fucking talent show thing.
Yeah, I think maybe it would have been close to about 2 months, because I don't even remember what that girl's name was who tried to be our singer. You remember?
If I say the name, do you like bleep it out? Or I think I remember the name.
You remember the name? No, you can say the name. I don't remember her last name, but
oh yeah, I'll remember her last. I think Alicia. No,
Alicia. Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Shout out Alicia. Sorry it didn't work out. Hopefully you're doing all right.
Alicia. That's right.
Yeah,
it wasn't Alicia. It was Alicia. Wow, that's so funny, dude. I remember I got in touch with her because a girl that was just my friend that ended up becoming my girlfriend, Christina, she introduced me to her because I guess they were in choir together or something.
Seems about right.
And then I just remember her parents were like all about it, dude. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
like her parents.
It's like a church or some shit. We jammed that a few times.
No, so that's where they lived, and they owned that property. And it was like a dance hall that they turned into a spot to put quinceañeras on. So like they primarily like rented out the space for people to host their quinceañera. Yeah.
That explains a lot. Okay.
Yeah. And we practiced in her house, like in the living room. And I just remember, like, he was so excited and so into it. And, like, I drove with her to buy my amp cabinet, actually, that I own now.
Is that from, like, an old dude?
To this day.
Like, you're talking about that orange thing, right?
Yeah. That amp. I remember we drove to... I don't know if you were in the car. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm like, why do I remember this? Like, I guess because you bought it from like some old white dude, right? Or?
Yeah, you must have been in the car then.
I guess I was in the trunk. Y'all didn't even realize it. I was just like, oh, damn. That unlocks a lot of memories I forgot I even had, dude.
We bought it off of this guy, and I remember we had to drive like 45 minutes almost in like the rush of traffic.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, he was so supportive of her. It was so cool to see, because
I remember that
he like spent a bunch of money on some PA equipment and like set it up and everything. Like he was so excited about it, and she just wasn't. She wasn't that interested in it, I don't think. And so we played that talent show, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore."
Damn. Yeah, that was pretty rough. Yeah, it's. I'm pretty sure it's on video somewhere. I think I know my dad and stepmom were there. I think my dad was recording it. I like to think like once he saw everything go awry, he was I'm just gonna pan down and stop this shit. But yeah, that was man, that was man. Had it been like any other time in my, or like if it would have happened like the year after, it would have been good. I remember that year was like turbulent for me. I was not like being 16 or whatever, because I guess you were a senior and I was a sophomore, right?
Yeah,
That
I
seemed about
was
right.
17. I don't think I had turned 18 yet, but
Okay.
yeah, because my birthday was in March, so I was like the youngest person in like my group of friends. It was kind of annoying, but well, I mean, at that time, like people care about that for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. And then, but then once you get past high school, it's like age doesn't fucking matter at all.
Right.
I mean, it does. Again, fucking 18-year-old with a fucking 35-year-old or whatever. But yeah, good stuff, man. So what happened to you like right after high school? Because you went to like a junior college, right?
Yeah.
Is that your story?
So right after high school, I went to Paris Junior College because my dad was, he was very adamant about me moving out of the house no matter what. He like wanted me to be on my own. I graduated in like the top 15% of my class.
Nice.
And so I talked to an advisor at UNT, and I don't remember if I don't think I ever actually put in an application, but I would have been accepted if I had done it. I just knew that I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to spend a shitload of money. So
Yeah.
I just went to Paris Junior College for a year, and then there they had this like really messed up rule where you couldn't take out FAFSA loans from the school. They have since gotten in trouble for it, but they were like refused to accept FAFSA money. So I actually owed the money to my college, like out of pocket. So I had to come up with money every time I needed a transcript to transfer.
Oh, that's bullshit.
So yeah, it was kind of annoying. But I moved back home. I went to Northlake for like 6 months, and I think I failed like 2 classes, and then I stopped going to school after that. And I was just like working 2 jobs. And then that summer, by the time summer came around, I had a friend of mine that I worked with who was like much older, who kind of helped me. He was like in between jobs. He was like a teacher, but he wasn't going to stay a teacher, so he was working over the summer kind of part-time at the pool because I was a lifeguard. And
Yeah.
and then he got me set up at a job working at a call center, and that's essentially the story of like what happened to me like the first year after high school. Okay. It was so many transitions. It was
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because you were a lifeguard at Northlake. Because I remember I'd be practicing because I was on the swim team, June, and then you were.
I forgot you were on the swim team.
That shit's so random. Yeah. And
Wow.
I guess, something I completely forgot about. I don't even know if you remember, but because after high school graduate in 2014, went to community college. 'Cause similar to you, I didn't want to waste money. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life at the time. So I was at Northlake for 2 years, got my associates, whatever. Then I was going to transfer to UNT in like fall of 2016. I remember going to like an orientation day, and I think we saw each other or something. Do you remember that? Like
at UNT?
Yeah, it was like
we saw each other at UNT.
Yeah, this was like 2016 or some shit, I guess. Like, because I remember going to an orientation and.
Well, that makes sense because that's whenever I moved to Denton, and that was for college. So it must have been that year. It might have been at orientation, I guess.
Yeah. It was like and I remember kind of like seeing you. We looked at each other and were like, "What the fuck?" And we were like, "Oh, my, Aaron, whatever." And needless to say, I went to orientation. I didn't actually enroll in the school that year. I was in a relationship and shit, and I don't want to be away from my boo, and how different things would have been. But we always just kind of kept like fucking just like randomly popping into each not into each other, popping into one another, and shit. And now here we are, whatever.
Yeah.
Should he tell the people how we've met this time around, like what circumstances? That's pretty wild.
So this is a really funny story. So I'm more curious because I feel like I don't know the entire backstory on your end, but for me, I graduated college during 2020.
Damn, you poor bastard.
I know. Yeah. And I was in lockdown for like 2 years, and I ran this podcast, the Hickory Straight podcast, where I would have like musicians or artists on, and we would just talk for probably like a year or 2 years or something like that. And then I think it was in 2022 going into 2023, I got the opportunity to run a podcast up at UNT at the Media Arts Studio. And for the last like 3 years now, I've been doing that. And Dean,
shout out homeboy.
Yeah. The production manager up there for the media arts department, he's the one who just like randomly was editing one of your videos, or like had one of your videos up on the screen, and I was like, who is that? And he was like, what? And and I was like, the guy on the screen, who is that? And he was like, oh, that's Aaron Garcia. He runs a show. And I was like, holy shit, dude, I went to high school with that guy. And he was like, yeah, this episode is from something we did in Irving. I guess it was just like the Irving Convention Center or something like that.
Huh. Interesting.
I don't know. Or I don't remember. Do you remember doing something over there?
Not the convention center, but it was because Dean, again, shout out homeboy. Kind of became friends, and I made this film called Facelift, and we filmed in Irving. He was like the camera operator, so maybe it was that. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, he had your podcast show up, and nice. I had no idea you lived in Denton, and I had no idea that we were both doing the same thing in the same place. And so he told me that you guys had done something in Irving, and I was like, holy crap, yeah, that's where I'm from, Aaron Garcia, that's him. And
Social Security number 5527. I know everything.
So yeah, and I was like, this is crazy, because at that point, I don't think I had seen you since I was 20. Because do you remember whenever we hung out for a very short period of time after, it would have been after I moved into my first apartment? You had like...
why the fuck? Yeah, I remember going over to your apartment because you're... Well, I don't want to give it a look, but it was in Irving, right? Like, past like Holy Family, I think. Yeah. Damn, what the? You're unlocking memories I forgot I had. Yeah, I do remember hanging out with you.
Well, see, I remember hanging out at your house specifically. That around that time.
Damn.
We went over. I went over to your house, and I think your brother was home or something, or your brother was getting home from work, but your mom wasn't home. And I remember we had this like long conversation about how your parents were kind of concerned because you hadn't moved out yet, and you had been graduated for like 2 years or like a year at that point, and you were like, yeah, I need to get my own place, I need to get my own apartment, but I don't have a job right now. I don't think you were working. You were like focusing really hard on music still at the time.
Damn, I do not remember that.
You don't remember that? Yeah.
No, I remember hanging
being
out
like in your room and talking to you about, because I was like telling you about the breakup that I had gone through like a couple of months before or something.
Damn, it's so funny because I remember that. I remember being at your apartment though, like in your bed, assuming it's the break we're talking about. Like, I don't want to like give the person's name. What were they like? It was like a blonde chick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that's so great because I remember having that conversation, but for whatever reason, I remember being at your apartment because I remember the apartments you lived at the time, my brother eventually moved into. So I remember like this was years later.
Ladera Ranch.
Yeah, like past like
Esther's.
Yeah, Esther's, like North.
He moved into there
like years later because I remember helping him move in. I was like, oh, yeah, his old buddy Mike used to live here, and yeah, that's fault. One of us is wrong. I don't know who's who. But
well, we could have hung out more than once. I mean,
yeah, probably just blended together.
Yeah, at that time I was like really busy with music, so
that's when you're already pausable, right? Like,
yeah. That's whenever so I quit going to school so that I could focus on music full time, because that's what I thought I wanted to do, and at the time, at least, like, there was nothing going on in Dallas. Like, I remember playing Curtain Club, playing Liquid Lounge, playing this one place that was kind of in that same area. I think it was called I don't even remember what it's called right now. I thought about it the other day, but it was just like a really small stage, and you would go in and play there. But I remember playing like Wits End, and I was playing in Dallas probably like 3 times a month, and each time, back then at least, you could park for free in a lot of places. So I used to park for free off of Malcolm X Street, and then just like walk down to where we were playing all the time. And you could get in and out of Deep Ellum at like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning in like 15 minutes, and you can't do that anymore.
Hell no, you can't.
It's like it takes you like at least 30 minutes just to get to the highway.
Yeah.
So
viewers watching this shit, it's like, man, Mike was tripping. What the fuck? That's not possible. Pre-COVID.
Yeah, but that was like 2015, or I guess no, before 2015. It would have been like 2013, 2014, and then maybe into 2015 a little bit. But 2015, I remember. Like living in that apartment, that I was so unhappy living there at that point, because I'd been living on my own for 3 years, and I was just over it. I just did not like that. I just needed to be out of there, and it seemed like going to college at that time was the only thing that I could have done at that point to like get out of the mundaneness of my reality, because I think I had it in my head that I was just gonna do music and it was gonna work out, and I would probably get married and have a kid by the time I was 25.
That's exactly what I told myself when I was a teenager. I was okay, get married 26, have my first kid at 28, and then here I am. I got close to doing one of those things, but no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird the way that reality works out, and I think a lot of it has to do with like what's going on socially right now. But but I don't know. I remember thinking back to those days, and I'm really thankful that I didn't sever any like friendships or relationships around that time, because I mean, I did sever some of them, but like I made that decision consciously, because I don't think they were good people to be around at the time for me. And so but most of the people that I was on good terms with back then, I stayed on good terms with. Even after I moved, and even though we don't like talk or hang out or anything anymore, like you're kind of an example. Like we've just been friends for so long throughout high school, and then hadn't seen each other in years, and it's like there's no bad blood between us. Like we didn't do anything to each other.
Yeah,
or like we had no like arguments or anything.
Yeah, sort of chill. Yeah,
There's a lot of people from high school that are like, I don't fuck that guy. I don't talk to him anymore. You know, that kind of thing.
I don't even fucking know. Like, yeah, it's so wild. Like that mundaneness you're talking about. That's exactly why. Like I eventually had to leave Irving because I was just there. After Northlake, was in a relationship, got out of that relationship, went to UTA for a little bit. Just had like a personal tragedy happen, and so I dropped out of UTA and drifted the earth, as I like to say, and that just means I was in Irving not doing shit. Like that's I wasn't actually drifting the earth, but speaking of Irving not doing anything until I kind of rebounded.
When did you go to UTA then? I didn't.
Spring 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, so fall 2016, I should have gone to UNT, but I just was in this relationship, and the relationship, unfortunately wasn't the best. I just, it was just bad. I felt like, I kind of had to stay. I felt like this weird trap where it was like, if I have to like stay and be devoted to this person, otherwise, if I'm in Denton, our entire family's like, oh, he's fucking cheating, doing all this, and it just felt like I was kind of trapped. It was really weird.
Was there not a whole lot of trust there?
Yeah, it was, I don't really blame, the partner that I had. I think it was just sort of her surroundings, unfortunately, because she was awesome. She was sweet, but, I know for a fact, like, her family would specifically say things like, why are you, like, I remember we were hanging out once, and I was in the bathroom, and I got, like, a phone call. My phone was like next to her family, and she didn't tell me this until after the fact, but I was in the bathroom, my phone went off, and apparently during that time they're like, who is that? Who the fuck's calling him? Like, check his phone. I answer it, and she's like, it's his brother, like, 'cause my brother was calling me. And then, but they're like, no, like, that's a cover up. He's fucking.
Both of her parents were in on
the
it?
mom, just the mom. The dad was pretty chill, but yeah, I remember, and it's like, if you're in a household like that where every day, like, your mom's telling you, like, oh, he's fucking cheating on you, doing this, like, you're eventually gonna have like trust issues. So I don't blame her. It is what it is. It's in the past. But yeah, I got out of that relationship in like December. Then I was like, well, let me just go to UTA. Fuck, let me just try this school, whatever the fuck. And when, like I said, personal tragedy happened, dropped out at the end of the spring semester, and then didn't do anything for a couple of years until I started making movies again, blah blah blah, and kind of getting out of a funk. Went back to school, Northlake, and my goal at the time was just to go to Northlake, get like a certificate or some shit in like television production. I was going to do that. And it was going really well, but then COVID happened in spring 2020 before I was going to like actually get that. And so I was like, fuck, I have to regroup yet again. And
so you were going to UNT for film?
I eventually went to UNT for film because, yeah, once COVID hit, spring 2020, I was at Northlake at the time because I was going to get a television degree or certificate, whatever it was called, and so that set me back, and I had to kind of like rethink my life. And I was like, well,
so you were still going to Northlake?
Yeah. Because after UTA, drifted the earth for a bit, and then I went back to Northlake fall 2019.
Okay.
I remember specifically the moment I made the decision to go back. I was working at a warehouse. I'm not going to say the warehouse because they're fucking assholes, but I was there. I just remember seeing the conveyor. Like, I was really good at my job. I've always been a hard worker. I remember being on a conveyor belt, and I had to, like, pack trucks or whatever, so that might give viewers an idea of where, I may or may not have been working. All the other trucks, like, no one was fucking doing anything, and my manager comes over. He's like, hey, Aaron, get ready because, like, like a huge load is coming your way or whatever. I was like, okay, that's cool, whatever. And then I remember hearing like this fucking thing like go off, like a bell or something that would signal that the conveyor belt was starting, and I just remember seeing, it probably wasn't, but it seemed like 200 like big ass fucking packages or whatever that were like heavy as fuck. And I remember looking at that, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to school. Fuck this shit. So I did, blah blah. Yeah, Northlake still until spring 2020. COVID hit. It's kind of rethinking my life, and this thing that a friend / coworker told me during my time at working at a YMCA. I told her I didn't really care about getting a bachelor's degree or anything, but she told me, she's like, well, hey, like, just, like, I mean, don't really think of it like that. Think of it more as like, hey, you get that, like, no one can ever take it away from you. Like, you've done something. And at the time I was kind of stubborn. I didn't fully digest. I was like, like, fuck that shit. But then, I don't know, COVID kind of made me wake up, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And going back to school seemed kind of like just the right move. I was like, I want to be educated. I want to have a college degree. I want to choose to actively do this. And so yeah, her words kind of stayed with me and sort of guided me and helped like give me the confidence and enthusiasm to eventually return to UNT, which was fall 21. Then I graduated fall 22. And yeah, pretty good stuff.
So you graduated from UNT in 2022?
December 2022.
Okay, so you only went there for like 2 years then?
A full year, 3 semesters. Yeah, because
Okay.
fall 21, spring 22, and then fall 22. So it was pretty.
Oh,
So 3 semesters total.
3 semesters?
Yeah.
Wow, so you must have been able to get a lot of what you needed done before.
Oh yeah. I came and it was, which was kind of both a good and a bad thing. Because I mean, it was good because I was ahead of it. It was also bad because, you meet a lot of people during like those like sort of like your basics and whatnot, and like specifically for my film degree, media arts, a lot of people would befriend each other and like intro to film or intro to fucking cinematography, and those classes I didn't take because I was already like at the advanced level. And as a result, the classes I did have, I was surrounded by people who had already like a camaraderie, a bunch of kinships with one another, and then I was just some random asshole or whatever who liked Nirvana and Guns N' Roses. And but yeah, UNT was pretty chill though. I enjoyed it. And I guess circling it back, while I was there, I never thought I'd have a talk show, but I was meeting all these really interesting individuals because Denton is pretty artsy. And I was meeting some people who were like really quiet, but they'd be like really fucking talented. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, let me elevate, like, let me show you, like, this is awesome. Like, more people should know about this. It's the idea of like, oh, you have to be a celebrity or something to like, be on a talk show, like as if you have to like earn that. I'm like, no, like you're good enough right now. And, I've always enjoyed just conversing with people. I'm kind of quiet-ish, but I mean, I can like speak well. And so I kind of started thinking, I'm like, well, what if I have like a talk show? And, I'm always listening to music, and sometimes I'm like, this is such a good song. I want to tell everybody about this. I'm like, what if it's like a talk show with artists so I can highlight their works? But then also, what if I can recommend stuff? So if I listen to a song I really like, what if we can tell the audience? So I started putting it all together. And then, spring 2022, I had this professor, I forget his name, but he was awesome. It was an interviewing class for some shit, and I pitched the idea to him, and he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then he's like, let me introduce you to this guy named Dean. And then so I got hooked up with Dean. Not like that, I linked up with Dean rather. And they gave me the go, and they're like, well, yeah, if you want to just use the studio, like, it's totally fine. And we did it. And then, yeah, we started doing that show that summer. It was really active. We did it like weekly. We got up to like 15 episodes, and then I stopped for a little bit just because, work, and just wanted to finish up school. And then I guess that's eventually where we sort of crossed paths. Like you said, you came across one of the episodes with Dean, and fucking wild, dude. That's so crazy. That's so strange.
Yeah, it's very funny how life happens like that. Like, we had completely different goals for such a long time. But the only thing that brought us together again was really going back to college.
Yeah.
And then
let this be a lesson to you.
And then, but like this happened. Like, I met you after I had already been graduated from college for like 4 years now. I mean, like, it took that long before I got reconnected with you for whatever reason. I think what happened. And maybe you could experience this a little bit too, but I think what happened is that once I decided to move out of Irving, just move out of my hometown, it's like everybody that used to be relevant in my life was no longer relevant because they didn't want to come out here, and I didn't care enough about them, I guess, to go back there. Like,
yeah.
As bad as that sounds, but like, whenever you're young, too, like in your early 20s, for me, I wanted to be able to hang out with my friends more. But the problem about doing that is that it was going to take me away from my goals within music. And so that was like a really hard thing to balance and navigate for a very long time. And then also another barrier was that even though I was doing music, I would still reconnect with some old friends of mine, but I wouldn't be able to hang out because I didn't have any money, or I didn't have a car at the time or something to go and see them, and or vice versa, you know. Like, I remember there were so many times that me and my friend Joseph would like make plans. I think there was like a good like 3 years where me and Joseph made plans, and then whenever plans came up and we were about to hang out, like one of us would have to cancel. Either because, you know, he lived in Arlington, so it was like an hour drive for both of us. And I think he came out to my place in Denton one time, and then we immediately made plans to hang out again, and it like fell through again. But like it was like a good 2 or 3 years where I think I only saw Joseph like once throughout the whole year, and I you know, I still stay in contact with him, and I think that there's a lot of other things that you have to learn how to prioritize in your life. And the people that I've found that prioritize their friends in their early 20s over like most things, unless their friends were like really good people to be around, a lot of those kinds of people like just ended up into drugs and drinking all the time. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're hanging out with people just to hang out, and you go to a job just to have a job, and your focus is on your social life and like trying to pick up chicks or something, like trouble's going to find you eventually, because
and that only ever lasts like, I mean like in the moment it, you know, feels cool, but like
it feels like everything whenever you're 20, 21, you know, 22 even, and like you start going to parties and you can like drink at bars and shit. Like it feels like, oh, this is just my whole life now. Yeah, that's how it was for me. Like whenever I would go out to play music, I would drink a lot, and then I would meet a bunch of people that I would never talk to, like never keep in touch with after that, but it felt important. Yeah, you know, but it really wasn't that important.
No, I agree with that completely, dude. It's cool. And going back to the Irving thing really fast or whatever, I mean, I totally get that, like just leaving it. And have you been to Irving? Like, do you visit it at all? Or when's the last time you've
last time I went to Irving was probably like 2 years ago or like a year ago, and it was mainly because I was taking a trip with my parents, and they live in Irving. But the last time I ever went to Irving was just to drive around, like outside of seeing my parents. Like I think it was driving. I had to drive to, I think it was like North Irving for something. I think I might have like met somebody to buy some like guitar gear or something online. North Irving. And I had to meet somebody for something in like North Irving. And so while I was there, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to drive around and like see all the old places and see what they look like now. And a lot of it has changed. But like whenever I went back down to South Irving, I was like, oof, yeah, this is where I'm from, and it's just as rough, if not a little worse than what it was before.
Yeah, dude, like going back to Irving, I mean, because I'm close with, you know, people there, so we'll hang out, and I just try to avoid it, dude. It just makes me like sad going back there, just time like passed, or it really makes me feel old and whatnot, and I don't know, kind of, I mean, it makes me realize, I mean, that's how I perceive Irving. I'm curious what other people like who are new to the city, if they're like, this is amazing, but like I can't imagine that, like it just looks so run down and whatnot, and just, I don't know, it makes me really sentimental and whatnot. Yeah.
What about Irving for you makes you feel that way specifically?
It's just, you know, the stuff that happened or whatever, you know, like tragedy and just, you know.
Oh, like while you were there, just the memories?
Yeah, I'm there and it just feels like I go on all that shit. Like, I don't know, when I go to Irving, it's sort of like, not that I revert, but I remember like how I used to be, like sort of innocent self before, you know, a lot of shit happened. And so when I go, it makes me realize that I'm not that person anymore. And yeah, just, you know, there's that quote from The Office where it's like, oh, I wish I could have, like, you know, people always talk about like the good times. I wish we could realize we were in the good times when it's actually happening, as opposed to being like a hindsight sort of thing. When I think back to Irving, I'm like, man, I wish, because I was just always in my head, because, you know, I'm a filmmaker, musician, and ever since I was like a teenager, even younger, I've always had this idea of myself like needing to be like the best of everything. So I always put a lot of pressure on myself. And so being in Irving, just whatever, when I was a teenager, I would push people away, or I would befriend people, but not like fully give myself to them, like people who would want to hang out with me. But I'm like, no, I'm not good enough yet. And I push all that shit away. And so like, I would do things, and I have things I can look back on, like, oh, going to this party or whatever, but then emotionally there's nothing there. It's kind of hollow because I know like I wasn't enjoying it. And that's something that's sort of like stayed with me even to this day, where I still don't exactly feel like I'm truly happy or where I'm wanting to be, because all like the passions I have, and something I'm working on. But again, I'm getting a little better with it. I'm just kind of embracing life and enjoying it and whatnot. And
I feel like I kind of have the same thing, but maybe in a different way. So I remember whenever I was 16 and I moved to Irving and I started going to school there, there were some people that I became friends with very quickly. And unfortunately, my family life was very unstable. I had moved in with my dad because of that, and then while I was living with my dad, things became unstable again. And it was like really difficult for me to communicate that to people, especially like people that were my age and in my class that I didn't even really know that well, you know. And I was like trying to make friends. And I remember I like quickly became really good friends with this girl named Katie in high school. And she was really cool, and we got along really well. And I had kind of a crush on her, but she had a boyfriend, and I hung out with her a lot. And I remember I went to the state fair with her, and it was like my first, like, quote unquote, like date experience, but it wasn't really a date because she had a boyfriend.
Gotcha.
So it was this weird like gray area that I found myself in with this new person at a new school, and I had literally only been going to the school for like 3 months, you know? So it was all very new, very fast. And then I like had to have this moment because I didn't realize what was going on until I talked to my dad about it. But I had to have this moment where I was like, okay, I'm kind of setting myself up for a little bit of trouble right now. You know, like I don't know who this guy is. I've only met him like twice in the hallways at school, and I'm like developing a crush on this chick. And she was like, I could tell that she was starting to become like emotionally invested in me, like maybe even on just a friend level, right? And I probably would have been fine just continuing to be her friend, but at that time I didn't feel good about myself. I was very insecure, and at the same time, like, I felt like what I was doing by being her friend was, like, wrong. So I made that same kind of decision to just start pushing people away. Yeah. So I remember I had her in a class, and I started being mean to her.
Damn.
In the class, just because, like, I didn't know how to communicate these things, because it was on a subconscious level, you know. And so I just, like, started being, I turned into, like, a really weird person, because it felt like moving to a new school and then all of a sudden meeting all these people that are, you know, interested in who you are, and, like, there's always, like, this weird mystique of the new guy or the new girl at the school, and I think it kind of creates, like, a weird popularity thing in a way whenever you're in high school, because it's like, you know, other kids are looking at this person and they don't know anything about them, so they haven't had a chance to really ruin any kind of reputation that they might have had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I kind of, like, self-sabotaged throughout that entire period, and my parents were kind of strict, so because of some things that I was doing behind the scenes that nobody really knew about, and so I wasn't allowed to, like, hang out with very many people unless you know, my parents knew their parents. So, like, you were one of the only friends that I think I hung out with at their house.
Oh yeah.
Just because my parents kept such a tight leash on me, because my high school experience was very different than my dad's high school experience, because my dad, like, he dropped out of high school, and then it was also very different than my stepmom's high school experience, because she changed schools, I think, like 3 times or something.
Man.
And so there were, and it wasn't just in high school, but there were a lot of, like, missed opportunities for me in Irving to develop probably better relationships or friendships with people. And I feel really bad specifically about that Katie girl, because I was in a point where, like, I genuinely liked her, you know, and I can't remember or recall a time that I genuinely liked a girl, except for one other time, and it was whenever I was a freshman, and I was just, like, so weird and socially awkward, because, you know, guys and girls are just socialized very differently.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're a guy in high school and you have that pressure to do all the things that your other high school friends are doing that maybe don't have as much parental supervision as you, you start to, like, be weird, because you feel like you should be doing something more than what you are with a you know, a girl that you're interested in or whatever, and it just becomes, like, this really weird dynamic. And then after high school, for, like, the first couple of years, I think it's always weird for other people, you know, for everybody, like, because a lot of the time you're still in the same region, you know, you're still in the same city, but and you're still immature, but you're not in a high school anymore, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, I think back to certain things in Irving that kind of have this, like, weird sadness to it.
Yeah.
But I think that my main reason for not wanting to go back or stay in Irving anymore is because of the lack of options and opportunities to thrive as being someone that's creative. Like, I mean, there's so many people in Irving that just do drugs and drink every weekend because the only other option for them is to go to a hookah lounge or something in Irving, or like, you know, go to a house party, or go to Dallas. Because like everybody goes to Dallas to party because you're in Irving and you're like 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away. And so there's just a negative, like a very negative culture that exists there, where like there's a lot of people that are just in a shitty place and don't do anything to change it because they don't even see that there's like an issue with the way that they're living.
Yeah, and my brain just like can't comprehend that shit like at all. Like my roommate and I will have our nice little philosophical discussions on a nice evening, and we'll talk, you know, because you know, he's a musician similar to me, and we're always, you know, aspiring to like, you know, make it, you know, whatever that means. And we'll be talking about other people, and it's like people we see, it's like, are they like happy, like not just living like in life, just working, just kind of like doing, maybe going out occasionally? Like how the fuck, like, is anyone happy with that? And again, going to Irving, I see that. I mean, I don't, you know, mean to diss Irving, because, you know, it's always gonna be a part of me and I love it. And, you know, I do take great pride in it. Like anytime if I announce myself from somewhere, if and when I do perform shows, I'm always gonna say like, oh, I'm from Irving, Texas. Like I want to carry that shit like a badge of honor, because you know, I want to be like, whatever this city was, like, hey, like some of us made it, like, you know, despite whatever it is, like it was capable, you know, it had some good things, you know, I do kind of want to represent it in that way. But yeah, I just can't comprehend. It's like am I just an asshole, like an obnoxious asshole who's like has like these like very outlandish dreams, like, or like are people like, what, you just, I'm working at this store, I'm working this office, whatever, and go home, see the wife and kids? Like, is that like, are people truly just content with that? I mean, I guess they are or whatever, and I think, you know, it's more just me overthinking or like kind of projecting or whatever. But it's crazy. It's crazy being a filmmaker slash musician. I would not recommend it mentally, at least.
If you're a musician in Irving, it's very strange because everybody knows who you are. If you don't play in like the orchestra in high school, if you play something like guitar or like drums, you know, like everybody thinks that's really cool, because the only musicians that you typically find in Irving are people that are like hardcore orchestra musicians, or they're just in orchestra because their parents are making them do it, or they're you know, they're in orchestra but they're like more or like, you know, actual band, like either orchestra or actual band, but but if they play like guitar or drums or bass, or like sing in the choir and then they sing in a band or something, because there was a few high school bands where I was at, it's like instant popularity, and like everybody knows who you are, because it's like, oh, you're a musician but you're doing something that's different, that's cool, that like people like, you know. And same thing kind of happened with like rappers. Like if you were a rapper in Irving, you know, either one, like most people wouldn't pay attention to you at all, but if you were like good and you performed at the talent show or something, and people started to know who you are, it was like instantly everybody knew it, you know, in your hometown, like even at other schools and shit, like, oh yeah, there's a musician. Like I remember whenever I was playing guitar like in the hallway one day, it was on somebody else's guitar. I didn't bring a guitar to school, but somebody else brought a guitar, and I like played with it in the hallway, and somebody was like, oh my god, you play guitar? And it like became this whole thing. And then that person stopped me in the hallway and was like, I have this friend that goes to Irving High that I went to school with in elementary school, you should link up with him. And it's like, it just seemed like there was this like subculture that existed in Irving that just really excited me. But I was always like depressed because I I wasn't in a band in high school, and the guys that were in a band in high school were like really good, and they were really popular. You know, they were like the popular kids in school or whatever. And I just kind of chased that feeling for a long time, and it's really funny and interesting that like that's what my motivation was, because Denton would have been the perfect place for that. But I think if I had moved to Denton right out of high school, given the stupid things that I did my first year of college out in Paris, Texas, and just the fact that I wasn't that happy of a person, I probably would have gone down the wrong path if I had moved to Denton right out of high school. So I'm glad that I moved here after I had kind of already gotten my life together to some degree.
I feel you. I think, you know, sometimes, not always, but, you know, things kind of work out the way they're supposed to. You may not feel like it, but I mean, as long as like kind of realized over the years, like when I've like gone out of my way to like do what I'm actually like truly passionate about, or like what I'm like, you know, again, like chasing something, whether it be like a college degree or, you know, I'm gonna make a movie, I'm gonna meet these people, blah blah blah. Things change around you like kind of instantly. The people you meet, suddenly it feels like things are falling in place and whatnot. And so great, like again, do the talk show or whatever, you know, start meeting all these bands I eventually be friend with or whatever, and then meet you, like things kind of happen the way they're supposed to or whatever. Which shit, if you don't do that, then you're just kind of like stuck or whatever, which I've been there before, and it's really easy to fucking do. But I'm curious, how do you feel about Denton though? Because you know, I'm not in Denton anymore. It's so fun. I was literally at the Ridge, so close to this whole fucking time. We know. God damn. Dude, the universes are like, these motherfuckers are supposed to. God, it's like, God, we've literally done everything we can, and they're literally right next to each other. And he's like, I don't fucking know. He's like, okay.
Yeah, for years too.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Jesus Christ, but
yeah, I mean, I like Denton a lot. My first experiences here were just so chaotic.
What year was this?
2016. I moved here with an ex-girlfriend, and we had been dating for like 8 months before we decided that we were going to move in together. And so the relationship already wasn't that great. And then when we moved in together, and after a month of living with her, I broke up with her. I just couldn't do it. Like we were just too we were just too different temperamentally, and I could not help her emotionally in the way she needed to be helped. And like it was just so much weight on me specifically that I just had to end it, because at that point she was only like maybe 10 months younger than me, so like not even a full year, but we were like maturity level mentally, we were just in two very different spots. Like I had already lived on my own for 3 years at that point. I was used to being alone. I was used to like not really being that close with my family. And she had never moved out from home, and her parents kind of like did almost everything for her. Like if something ever happened with her car, her dad would fix it. If she ever needed money, like for something, they would give her money. She had a job, but like she could pay him back, and she saved up money before we even moved in together for like an entire year. So she had like thousands of dollars put aside because she didn't have to pay rent for like 3 years or something, you know. Damn. And then she got a job. She just saved everything the whole time she was working, And I had just sort of been struggling just on my own. And so I was used to like not having money. And so whenever we moved in together and things got expensive, she had all these expectations that we were going to like move in together and then like immediately start a family. And at the same time of going to college, and like that was just not practical at that age and at that lifestyle level, because I was working 40 hours a week. I was going to school full time, and trying to maintain a relationship while doing both of those things is probably difficult for anybody, much less anybody at the age of 21. You know, like doing a relationship seriously and moving in together and stuff. And so after a month, it was just so many conversations that we had that it was painful to watch, but she was just like not self-aware enough to see that she was putting so much responsibility on me while not actively trying to do anything to help the situation on my end, you know? Like, she was just not used to being alone, and she did not handle that mentally very well. Because, you know, she didn't know how to do basic chores regularly and keep a positive attitude whenever things didn't happen in her way. So she would have like a difficult time in class, or like a difficult time with a friend that she went to school with, and then that would bleed over into every other part of her life, and she would just get depressed, and then couldn't even do basic things like, you know, cook for herself, or like do the dishes, or like take care of her own animals that she had.
Damn, not
so
the
I had to like kind of step up, because there was not anybody doing these things. And then she went to therapy, and got on antidepressants, and it just like really affected both of us. So I had to get out of that relationship. So that was like my first moving to Denton experience, because as soon as we broke up, she moved out, and at that point I had given all of my stuff away, because she had all this stuff that she bought for our apartment. And then whenever she moved out, I basically had nothing.
Damn, dude.
And I had to start from scratch. And I mean, I made it. I did it entirely by myself. I think my dad like lent me some money, and I paid him back to get into a new apartment.
Damn.
But my Denton experience was not one of leisure. So like, I have not really been able to enjoy Denton until probably the last like 3 years.
Damn, dude.
But I mean, I like Denton. I think there's a lot of things that could be different, though, for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. These parallels are kind of crazy, dude. Yeah, when I came to UNT, I was in fall 21 when I came. You know, shout out to that relationship. Probably of all the ones I've been in, without a doubt, like the healthiest. It was really great, but yeah, similar to you, I wasn't like fully embracing Denton, just because, you know, I had the relationship and I kind of wanted to be devoted to that. And we eventually broke up for those very reasons, you know. Again, shout out to that relationship, you know, it was great. But yeah, similar to you, after that, I kind of felt like I actually started thoroughly kind of enjoying and experiencing Denton. And for me, you know, it was a good city. I don't think it was, I mean, obviously I'm already away from it. I'm in a different city right now, but it kind of made me realize, I think a year in, maybe like once I graduated UNT, kind of moved on from that, I kind of was like, damn, yeah, I can't be here forever though. I kind of have to leave, just because it was great. And I don't know, I've always compared it to like a Groundhog Day sort of thing, because, you know, this is a college town, all right? So you kind of see you see like the young people or whatever coming in or whatever, and, kind of coming partying, and there's some bands, music, and it's like also, but then you hear like, oh wait, it just keeps happening. More freshmen are going to come, more bands are going to be performing, these same bars are going to be filling, they're going to be partying, all this shit's going to happen. People are going to be doing cocaine at this, you kind of realize like, oh,
this is just a fly-by-night culture that kind of recycles itself pretty frequently.
And it was so that's kind of why I was like, yeah, I need to, again, I enjoyed Denton, but it was kind of like this, I realized it was going to be this ephemeral thing where it was going to be, eternal. It was eventually going to come to an end, and then plus for me, I don't know, I just culturally I've enjoyed Denton, but it was kind of admittedly a bit of a culture shock because I'd been in Irving, my whole life. I went to UTA for a little bit, and spring 2017, but aside from that though, just being away from school for like 4 or 5 years, and I knew what was going on in the world socially, like because of the internet, like when it came to like gender, sexuality, and all that stuff, I was aware of it. But then okay, I'm ready for I've studied. But then when I eventually came in fall 2021, it hit me, and I was like, it was like kind of the first time I remember like hearing like they, them, and all this, and so all this stuff was hitting me, and I felt so like fucking backwards. I was like, every step I took, I was like, am I being a racist or sexist piece of shit? And it became very subconscious. And
see, that was probably the weirdest thing about Denton that I encountered. But I feel like I made the most of my experiences here in pockets. So whenever I say I don't think I've been able to fully enjoy Denton until the last couple of years, I say that with kind of a different understanding, because I think I did enjoy Denton before that, but I think what it was is it was more so, in between having to do school stuff or in between having to work, and whenever you're young, you have to do that stupid thing where if you want to go out and party, but you have work in the morning, you just deal with having 3 hours of sleep or something.
Yeah.
And like, that wasn't, that was like fun on some level, but, just like anything else, like you meet some bad people and you kind of want to go away from that, but the college culture in Denton was very antagonistic is the best word I could describe, because I remember going to college and I was like ready to absorb information, and I was ready to change my life, really, because I made the decision to go back to college to change my life and what my circumstances were then. And whenever I went there, it just seemed like I was instead met with a bunch of people that just had assumptions about who I was based off of the class, quote unquote, that I belonged to. And there were people that I would meet at house shows or just like at college functions, and it was almost like I was actively excluded because of the perception on who I was or who I might be. And I was also very awkward and introverted to some degree, so I don't know how much of that could have been helped if I was just a little bit more outgoing. I really I don't know, because I can't go back in time, but there was like a cool group of like friends I made in a class, and in the spot I was mentally, I think I clung on to the good things from that group of friends a little too hard, because whenever it inevitably ended, because the semester ended and we weren't in that class anymore, and you know, we tried to make plans to hang out and stuff, and it wouldn't work, I would get like really disappointed. You know, it would like it would hurt. It would literally hurt me because it felt like I was just very lonely. You know, here for a long time, and a lot of that could have been self-induced. I imagine that it was, but
yeah, I mean, shit, you're fucking cooking right now, dude. Relate to this. Yeah, it was. That's how I felt. You know, I wanted to be in school. I wanted to fit in. Like genuinely, I wanted to fit in, and you know, felt like I had friends because it seemed like everybody else had such an easy time. But then for me, I felt, you know, because I was a transfer student, you know, like I was older than a lot of the students, so I couldn't just fucking relate to them. Like just like the music they'd be talking about, I'm like, who the fuck is Charlie X? Like, and, you know, just things like I couldn't relate. And you know, obviously early 20s, late
there
teens
quickly becomes like an in crowd and an out crowd.
Yeah,
which is really strange because college is like all different kinds of people.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
whatever like niche interest you have, there's an in crowd and an out crowd.
Exactly. And so I, you know, I mean, and this is something that's probably, I mean, it's always followed me. I've never really felt like I belong like in any specific place or whatever. And you know, despite like, you know, longing for that, you know, it's, I know some people maybe embrace like the outsider role, like, nah, fuck that, like I want to be included, you know, I live for that. And to being in Denton, it really, despite enjoying it, it also kind of did a number on me. I've never felt higher, but similarly I've never felt lower. Like, and it really hit some low spots where you're seeing things that make sense to you, where like why are I'm talking to this person, I'm having a great conversation, but why can't it like stick? Like, what's wrong with me that other people can hit up someone and be like, hey, do you want to hang out? And bam, it happens. But then what am I just fucking ugly, or am I just like so out of place? Do I reek of something that I'm not aware of, that I can't do that same thing? Why can't I have like lasting relationships and friendships? I'm meeting these people in class who I think we're cool, but then the class ends and I never hear from them again. And then I come across as weird. Like, is it weird for me to ask my classmate or this person I met at a house show to hang out? Like, am I crossing a boundary? Like, and then it starts like messing with you because, you know, they don't agree to hang out, and you're like, oh, well, so I guess none of that's like what's real and what's not.
Yeah. And I think that just comes from being temperamentally different, you know, like just being introverted as opposed to extroverted. Like, that's just, it's an entirely different game. And whenever you're younger, I think if you're younger and you're extroverted, a lot of like really good things happen to you fairly easily because you're instantly sharing ideas and sharing like intellectual resources. You know what I mean? Or even like practical resources, just because you're, you know, a good guy. And I remember I was at a house party in Denton before I even went here. I think I was like 20 years old. And I had this like whole conversation with this guy outside of this party for like 2 hours. I mean, like, it's a party, like most guys are you know, most guys are like talking to chicks and trying to hook up with them. And you know, I kind of went out to this thing with the same intention with my friend Joseph, but I ended up like talking about culture with this guy outside for like 2 hours just because I was like naturally interested in it. And he's someone that has kept up with me and kept up with our band's music and came out to our album release show randomly. But now he lives in Austin, and at least last I heard, and it's just crazy that like those kind of things happen in Denton too. So even though you may feel like in the moment like, oh, I'm not making friends or I'm not doing something, you sort of are unintentionally. Yeah. It's just a different scene that you're a part of. And that, you know, I would say like the popular people or whatever in college are usually people that don't stay where they're at. And I think it's because there's this weird mindset that, like, if enough bad things happen to you in a certain place, the person seems to just think it's better to blame the place than the encounters that they had individually, like, in an objective manner. And so there's a lot of people that I knew in my early 20s that moved out of Texas because they were just like, I need to get out of Texas. Texas is the problem. And they would move somewhere else and have all the same problems. And it's like, and it took them a while for them to realize that it doesn't matter where you live geographically, you're still going to come into the same kinds of issues. But I think that there's certain things that people have to learn how to navigate, and people navigate them differently. Like, I think there's a lot of extroverted people temperamentally that probably end up being in situations where they do lose friends because they say or do something inappropriate they don't realize is that bad. And it just, like, continues on, and then they get, like, ousted socially. And I think social media just kind of accelerated that. Because before social media, I think that those sort of things still happened, but there was less of a divisive culture to cultivate cutting people out, or even just cutting people out in a, like, harsh and negative manner. So I don't know. I say that I'm starting to enjoy starting to enjoy Denton fully because I'm in the best place emotionally and and, like, financially than I've ever been. So I'm able to finally, like, take advantage of the opportunities that I might have let pass me by before.
I get that. And, again, shout out Denton. I, again, had some pretty incredible highs here, and I always tell people, I'm like, same with, like, UTA. I didn't have the best UTA experience, but I'm like, hey, like, don't, like, I was just in a bad place here mentally. Like, UTA was a fucking pretty cool school. UNT was awesome majority of the time. Denton was really great, especially if you're an artist. Very artist friendly. Yeah, again, these parallels, I feel like I'm in the best place I've been, like, emotionally and, mentally, and so it's been pretty, like, miraculous, and just that's nice.
Yeah, no, it's
my eyes. And
I need to turn the
oh no, yeah, you're good.
I need to turn the lights on just in case, but
shit, I'm pale enough. I blended in with my shirt. But.
Yeah, man. And see, the cool thing is too here is that if you are involved in something creative, there's like a subset of creative people that are going to have an ego, and they're going to do shitty things, and they might win in the short term. But eventually this town is small enough that if you do that to enough people, you're going to get found out pretty quickly.
And just keep doing what you fucking love, dude. Like, I mean, you just keep trailing. I mean, that's what I've figured out with, like, specifically with film. I just kept making movies, kept meeting people. I got really better at my craft, and until it sort of I feel like all the elements sort of came together with my last film, Facelift, because it was like, I'm at UNT, I'm meeting a bunch of film students, and so, the competition was, kind of like stiff and whatnot, and it's like, oh, well, now you're gonna have to prove yourself. And it's like, oh, well, all those shitty movies I made back then, like, it's actually paying off. Like, I've kept growing or whatever, and then bam, Facelift ended up being a pretty great movie. IMHO, I'm slightly biased because the whole thing, but yeah, I mean, you just keep, like, doing what you love and what you're passionate about, and I mean, it's gonna, like, some ups and downs, but as long as you just keep moving forward, keep moving forward in life. It's like a fucking joke I heard. It's like, hey, in video games, like, if you're hearing boss music, like, oh, that's good. It means, you're progressing and you're not just staying. And it's like, once enemies start coming and shit, like, goes awry, like, oh, but hey, at least you're moving forward and whatnot. And that's
right.
Exactly how I see things.
And I think that's a good thing to do too, because even though I've lived in Denton for so long, musically, I made a decision a long time ago that I wasn't going to stay in Denton and only do music in Denton. That's what I mean by stay in Denton. You know what I mean? Like, I live in Denton, but we tour. We go out of state. We play in other places. We try to make connections in other places.
Yeah.
And traveling is healthy, however you could manage it. And that's like really important to me, because I think you can live in a place and enjoy other places. Don't necessarily have to live there. You can enjoy, them and have that experience. But there's no guarantee that like we're gonna be able to do what we love for a long time successfully. Like that's just kind of the reality. And so meeting people that are doing something that is unique or better than you, it stops being at a certain point. Like it stops being something that is adversarial and more of like just an appreciation. Like, we're occupying the same space and you do this really cool thing, and that's cool. And you might have more people paying attention to you or whatever. And that's that's a thing to be proud of. But just being able to be around those kinds of people helps you as an artist.
No, definitely.
And it, like, even just taking the whole artistic side out of it, it helps you as a human being, because you can learn what you want and what you don't want, and you can learn how to start to look at people as individuals, which is what they are, instead of like some weird demigod.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's some musicians I've met here that at the time that I met them, I was just like so terrified of them, because they were so good and had so many people listening to their music. And one time this guy like recognized me, and his band was like the biggest band in Denton, and I was like at a house show, and he like recognized me, and I was like, holy fuck.
Me?
like I just remember like walking away like freaked out, and I think I just left the party, because I was just like, oh my god, I can't handle this now, like it was just this really weird moment for me. And their band is like still really popular, but I don't even think they're like releasing music very frequently anymore. And it's because they're all got their own lives and their own thing that they're doing. So like, even if you get that quote unquote success, I don't think it changes much about the decisions that people make about their lives, because at some point, whether it's a lot of success or a little bit of success, at some point there's so many other things in their life that they have to manage, like a relationship or family members either passing away or having issues, or them having issues with their own like mental health and their own satisfaction out of life. And so maybe they need to take a break from music completely to handle those things. And it doesn't matter if they're successful whenever they make that decision or they're not. They still have to do it,
Yeah.
So that's been kind of an interesting perspective to have living in this town, because you meet a lot of people like that are very, very talented, and you're just like, my brain does not work that way. No matter how hard I could push it, it couldn't do that. And it's really hard in the moment to look at them and think like, oh, they're the coolest fucking person ever.
Yeah.
And then as time goes on, things change.
No, I agree with that completely, dude. It's, yeah, you see people, you see groups, right? Like, where it just seems like everybody has their shit together. They're just like the best of friends. And, if you ever feel lonely, again, you're longing for stuff like that. It seems just so idealistic. But I can like think of two specific examples where, little some groups I was involved in at UNT where just everybody just seemed like they're buddy. They'd be hanging out, like drinking, partying, and all this, and look just so fucking. I'm like, dude, like, why can't I have like friends like that? But then I remember, it's gonna sound a little peculiar. It's gonna sound a little weird. It might not have as big of an impact, listening to it as it did like when I saw it. But there was one guy who seemed kind of like the ringleader, right, where everybody would always talk to him, and we're at school and where everybody would meet up, and he was surrounded by people, always talking to people. And then I got there once, and he was kind of by himself, and remember he was just like he was like fidgeting. He just looked like me, like, if I'm a loner, it is what it is. Like, if you're looking at me just by myself, like, I look like I belong by myself. But he just looked so out of place and looked so fucking uncomfortable, and immediately dispelled any sort of like demigod image I had of like him and just everybody. I'm looking at this individual, I'm like, damn, they kind of look like pathetic, like without that stuff or whatever. They're lonely like I am, and they're insecure, and it's all this, and
yeah,
and it just,
there's some people that make that their entire identity, and so if they don't have it.
And again, then like bring up the social media thing being very prevalent. Like, I would see those people, hundreds of likes on their posts or with their friends and all that, but then I see like what appeared to be like the real them, just kind of like not sure what to do with themselves, and being with those people, and I'm like, damn, they're probably doing. I'm hanging with them, and they're not even talking. They're just fucking on their phone. They can't hold conversations and all that, and it really just dispels everything, and it makes you realize, like, why do I even give a fuck about this, bro? Let me just do my thing. Like,
yeah, no, I think that has to do with some kind of weird interfacing issue with their reality,
Yeah.
where they have to be feeling some deep level of fakeness. You know what I mean? Like, they have to be dealing with some deep level of either shame for who they really are that they're trying to hide constantly, or some deep lie that they've convinced themselves of about who they are, who they're supposed to be. And so whenever you see that manifest itself in person, it's a little weird, because you think like, this person has everything going on in their life for them, and it's not making them happy. Like, what the hell is wrong? It's confusing. And obviously that happens everywhere.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. It's Denton is changing a lot, and I think that the biggest thing I'm anticipating happening is at some point the culture that brought me to Denton in the first place, I think it's going to disappear completely.
Damn.
Meaning that people are going to realize, that college campuses are so messed up now that it doesn't make sense for them to go to college anymore. Yeah. So people are already stopping themselves from going to college, and then there's going to be so many people out there that are going to make that decision, and they're going to be like, well, I'm a musician, and if I were going to go to college, it would be for something other than music, so I'm not even going to go to college. But even if I just want to be a musician, I don't have to go to this town to be a musician, because I can get people to listen to my music purely online if I figure out how to make that work, Yeah. And I think people are already making those decisions, which is why a lot of music venues in Denton are closing down. And I don't know how that sort of thing manifests itself in the film world. But just because film is kind of something that people travel all over the world to do anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but there's got to be a lot of people that perhaps would have gone to college for film that are just making the decision not to go and to just do it instead. And I think maybe there's always been a large majority of people that have done that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you have navigated that, being involved in film, and what you think about how there's so many people that aren't really going to college anymore.
Yeah, man. Film, I mean, it's, you wonder sometimes, it's like, oh, like, has life always been like this? I guess someone from the 50s, like, did they experience, or 70s, like, are they experiencing the same thing where, like, oh, everything seems so bleak or whatever? I'm like, maybe the case, but, like, fuck me, when it comes to film nowadays, it just seems so, there are a bunch of different elements that, streaming, number one, like, I got into films, I mean, to have my shit play, like, in a movie theater, an auditorium, like, no disrespect to streaming, but, like, that's, like, what the fuck, like, that's not my life's work, just to be on a fucking phone or a tablet like I wanted in an auditorium, and just seeing how everything is, where every other week, you see, like, a headline.
You had the envisionment of the
theatrical experience,
of the experience of the release and of the preview, you envisioned being able to, like, get people in a room and show people that this is my preview of my movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And like that's not something that happens anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can, and it does, but it's like there are just so many fucking movies, and, like, there's so many movies that, and, like, what am I trying to say? It's just so vast, like, with Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd, like, things just come and go so quickly. You can hear about a movie that has, like, so much hype, so much social media builds it up, and then it comes out, and then it's forgotten about, like, the day after releases. A week later, no one's talking about it. There's just so much fucking content out there. That's probably keyword, content, not, like, particularly films or television series, but, like, content, or just shit that, like, people can put out, on social media, like, it can blow up, get a bunch of likes, get a bunch of views, people can share it, but then it's on to the next one, it's kind of, like, maddening. It's like, so in this day and age, can you make something that lasts more than a fucking week or two? There's people talk about that Barbenheimer thing. That was a huge phenomenon, and that was a phenomenon because it was something that people talked about for the entire year, and it felt like an anomaly. And it's like, how is that? I mean, because, growing up, it felt like a lot of movies, were kind of like that. It felt like the culture was kind of more about film, like, well, movies coming out, like, people cared about the Oscars a lot more, it seemed, and there's just so much shit out there. It's like, how do you keep up with it, and how do you extol one, beyond just a week or whatever? It's weird, but fortunately or unfortunately, I am just the most stubborn fucking asshole that I'm like, no, I just need to make my movie. Then people are gonna. So it's like, for better or for worse, that keeps me dry. Like, I'm like, whatever, despite how everything else is perceived, the films I make will be talked about. And
movies are very different from music in some ways, and in other ways they're very much alike. And in the ways in which they're very much alike right now, I think, is that the artists and the labels that have had the reputation and the capital in the music industry to maintain their career and their flow of income off of the artists that they have signed to them and stuff, they hold, in my opinion, a virtual monopoly over the people's attention. With music, it's a little different than movies, though, because there's all these other options and ways that you can learn about bands and musicians outside of, you know, being thrown something by a record label. There's a lot of people that are able to get attention just purely by themselves for the music that they're creating. But with movies, it's so difficult, in my opinion, to try to get someone's attention for a movie that won't be streamed on Netflix or Hulu, and maybe just premiered on YouTube or on some other, you know, indie movie streaming site.
Yeah.
And the way that you market movies and the way that you market music is so different, because if you think about the way music is marketed, you can put a 30-second clip of a song out, and it might not be representative of the whole album, right? But it's 30 seconds of that entire song that's probably only 3 minutes long, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas with movies, if you try to take clips of movies and use it to advertise entirely on your own, one, it's really hard to make that look appealing unless you're using like really high expensive equipment and editing techniques.
Yeah.
But two, even if you show like 4 to 6 clips of a movie that you made that's about 30 seconds to a minute long, or maybe even 2 minutes long, the likelihood that someone is going to engage in the movie based off of those clips is so small, and the market for trying to get people's attention to your advertisement of the movie is so much more difficult, because if you write a pop song and you're, you know, a 21-year-old girl pop artist, you know that you can market to, you know, teenage girls that are maybe just a few years younger than you, and then girls up until they're probably about 30.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the audience. You know who to market to. Or like if you're a punk band and you're like 28, you know, you can probably get people's attention that are in their early 20s, and then maybe even people up until they're like 40, because, you know, as niche of a genre as punk is, like, you know that there's people that are at least a part of that scene within those age groups.
Yeah.
Or that can appreciate it within those age groups. But if you're doing a movie, it's like, okay, I do a comedy movie. Well, what kind of comedy is it? Well, it's kind of like Adam Sandler style comedy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, there's some young people that really enjoy it. There's some older people that really enjoy that kind of comedy.
Yeah.
So where do you put your attention to? Because you don't know if it's going to be men or women or both that are going to be into it.
Yeah.
You don't know what age range they might be into it, because, you know, there's younger Gen Z people that are just now discovering a lot of the old Adam Sandler movies. And they're...
That sounds so fucking weird to say. Like, having grown up with Adam Sandler movies, the idea that, like, that's...
Right. They're just now learning who he is and, like, learning of his movies, and they're getting into it. But then, like, if you write a serious movie, like a thriller movie, you could probably think, well, this is actually more broad. This could appeal to pretty much everybody. So whenever you create some kind of online advertisement, it's like, well, where are you going to maximize the amount of advertisement for the money that you're putting in?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to go for, younger people because younger people watch movies and older people don't. I mean, I think that's the only place you could definitively say is true, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That, like, if you're younger and you have more time on your hands and you aren't jaded because you've seen 1,000 movies, you're probably going to be more likely to look at it. But, I mean, the avenues for movie discovery is so much thinner than music discovery, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, dude, it's freaking wild. You know, I think about that sometimes. Like, I mean, the movie ideas I'll have, I'm like, who's the audience for this? Like, what's it gonna be received? And I mean, I always go back to one thing that the internet taught me, because, you know, internet, social media, you know, is it the second coming of the Antichrist? Possibly. On the flip side, though, just something that I kind of realized at an early age when I get into the internet was, you know, certain things that I thought I did that were like really unique or special or quirky. It turns out, you know, millions of people would do it. You know, just for an example, you know, being in the backseat, you know, on a rainy day, looking at little raindrops fall. I thought I was the only one who saw, like, you know, who would do a little race, like, oh, like which drop is gonna, you know. And that's something that's always such a weird fucking example to use, but that's something that's always stayed with me, because when I make movies now, it's like, yeah, is this going to make money? Who's the audience going to be? And it's like, well, don't worry about, like, you know, discovering that or, like, you know, understanding that. Just make something that's close to you and that you're passionate about, because similar to, you know, you're not the only one who is racing raindrops. You're not going to be the only one who has those feelings in that film that you're producing. And like that movie Facelift was something that was like personal to me. You know, it's about this chick who moves across the country to attend college, and while over there, she takes off her face and puts on a new one so she can be a lot, you know, livelier. And some shit happens with her family back home, so she has to go back and put on her old face, but then she can't find her old face. So it's like, how is her family going to recognize her? And that came from something that was like within me, you know, the idea that I didn't have the confidence. It felt like the person I was, it felt like I had to put on a mask, you know, to, like, you know, be freer and whatnot. And it's like, oh, I do that, like this like weird fucking out. I remember telling people about, like, oh, I want to do this movie where this happens, and they're like, and you wonder why you have no friends there. But I realized, I mean, it was received really well, and I've met a lot of people as a result of that. And that's how I'm like, it reaffirmed. I'm like, yeah, just don't worry about the demographics, the audience, or whatever. If you do something that's passion, you know, with you, and is it, you know, a good movie, you can't just make a piece of shit and be like, oh, you know, it'll find its audience. You know, actually have it be pretty good, which, you know, I think I'm a pretty good filmmaker. I do think I'm capable of putting out like decent work. It's like, just do something that like really resonates with you, and it'll find its audience. It can be old people, it can be young people. It'll if it means something to you, chances are it's going to mean something to other people. And that's what I'm living by. And like my next film, which is called Denton, Texas. I wonder what it's about. It's about Denton, Texas. Like, I'm so fucking hyped about it. I don't think I could really describe it in like the appropriate terms. I don't know if I pitch it to someone, if they'd fully grasp it, but it's so fucking important to me. And I genuinely believe if I'm going to be somebody in this film industry, it's going to be because of this movie. You'll be able to trace it back to Denton, Texas. Like, oh, that was his Slacker. That was his Reservoir Dogs. That was his, you know, Francis Ha. That was, you know, and I feel so fucking good about it. It speaks to me, and I really feel like it's going to find its audience. And I think people could be the most conservative fucking person, but they're going to watch this movie. They're going to be fucking bawling by the end of it or whatever. Like, holy, who's this Aaron Garcia guy? And I'm so passionate about it. So that's how I perceive those things when it comes to demographics and audiences, personally.
Cool. Yeah. When did the last movie come out that you made?
Facelift. We finished it, and because we shot it in spring 2023. Throughout that summer, I edited it and whatnot. 'Cause, you know, I wrote, directed, produced, edited it, and then I premiered it in October of 2023. So it was pretty nice little turnaround. We started filming beginning of April, October, pretty good. And but I officially put it on YouTube like a couple of months ago. So now, you know, people can just watch it. And because that's another thing, you know, you hear about film festivals, it's like that's where it has to be. But then it's like this particular movie, you know, is 43 minutes long, something like that. And that's too short for a feature, and that's too long for a short, and it's like it's sort of in this no man's land, and festival, that's this whole other thing where you have to like fit within these constraints or whatever. You have to make it X long, it has to be about this, to get into this festival, and then you get into that festival. You parade that around like I got into this festival, and then people are like, what fucking festival is that? Like, why should we give a shit about it? And it's a nightmare. But yeah, so it's on YouTube now. People can freely watch it now that it finished its festival run. And randomly it kind of blew up. I mean, this might not sound a lot to like viewers or listeners out there, but I've never had like a movie get like beyond 1,000 views, and it has like 6.5, 6.4 as of this recording. It just happened. And funny enough, this is so fucking random, but if you're familiar with YouTube, you can go to like your YouTube studio, and it's I'm like seeing all these views, and it's like, oh yeah, this film was clicked on, it was recommended based on these videos, and the videos are like, one of the videos was like top 10 lesbian sex scenes. I'm like, what the fuck did this have to do with facelift? Like,
wow.
I mean, nevertheless, I mean, whatever got me views, but it's like, it was like top 10 lesbian sex scenes that were like sensual scenes in cinema and all this shit. I'm like, I mean, thanks. But like, I don't know if like maybe that's based on my YouTube history, which may or may not be that, but it's but very strange. Nevertheless, shout out to the fucking YouTube algorithm, because it's made that. But
well, cool, man. This was fun. I'm sure we're gonna hang out again soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited that you're excited about doing another movie, and
so excited.
I did not realize that other movie was out so recently. So
yeah.
I'll have to go and watch it. So.
Heck yeah, please do.
All right. Thanks for listening.